order. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Pam Dobus.
Here.
Barry Christensen. Here. Connie Rule. Here. Darren McGregor. Jim Modrak.
Here.
Ken Nagel. Kim Turner. Russ Bacuza.
Present.
Vince Scalzo. 9 members present.
Thank you. I need a motion to adopt the agenda for business items.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Turner and seconded by Mr. Christensen. Any discussion about those? Okay, then will you open the vote, please?
Voting's open. Jim, did you vote?
Didn't come through, so
Oh.
I'll accept.
Do you want to just do all ayes, Pam? And I'll put them in?
Did nobody show?
There's 4 people who's, it's not coming through yet, so.
Okay, can you call their?
Connie?
Just say aye or nay. Aye or nay for the intent to adopt the agenda. Yes.
Darren? Yes. Jim? Yes. Jim?
Yes.
Russ?
Yeah, I just voted actually.
Okay. Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, at this time, we're going to read the comments that have come into us through email for public comments on the agenda items. However, I also want to remind the public that you can continue to send your comments into us at publiccomments@bphawks.org throughout the evening, and we will read the rest of the comments that we have at the end of the meeting. I also would like to inform you all that our meeting next week is going to be live, so it won't be all remote, and we are going to be having it in the high school auditorium. We will be following all the requirements necessary, for example, masks and social distancing and no more than 250 people, but it's the last meeting, it's the meeting where we'll be approving the budget for next year. So we will have that in the high school auditorium next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So Mr. Modrak, will you read the first public comments for us?
Yes, Ms. Dobus. The first comment is from Christine DePasquale. Good evening. My name is Christine DePasquale. My address is 5000 Heartland Drive, Bethel. My question is in regards to the IMS Craft Show that is normally held in November. I wanted to see if any guidelines have been released as if we will be able to hold one this year. At any given time, there will be no more than 80 to 100 people, counting the vendors, volunteers, and shoppers. Thank you in advance in responding. Ms. DePasquale, IMS PTSO.
I would say the answer to that question is that we have not had any decisions been made at this point in time. It's still an evolving situation.
I have the second one. It's from Sharon Janisek, 4314 Anna Street. Good evening. I see the approval of the 2021 student handbooks are on the agenda. I reviewed them for any updates to the dress code, which the discipline committee was reviewing for possible changes regarding the way in which the dress code inappropriately burdens our female students by making their problem of boys cannot learn to control themselves. However, it did not appear that changes have been made to the dress code. Could you please provide us with an update on the discipline committee's work progress and whether or not they have provided the board or administration with a recommendation? Thank you, Sharon Janicek.
I believe, but maybe Dr. O'Rourke or somebody else can chip in here and say, but I don't think that once COVID hit that there were any committee meetings that continued on, were there?
That's correct, Mrs. Service. The discipline committee had made some recommendations and some changes, but they weren't finished with their work. I reached out to the chair of the committee to see where they were with their recommendations for the board, and I was told that she sent some of the recommendations and will share those with the board, that the work of the committee was not concluded yet.
So that although we have to approve the handbooks, there might be revisions at a later date. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Also, I skipped one of the items on the agenda. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of 4/21/20. It's been moved by Mrs. Rule.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Spacuzza. Any comments or changes to those minutes? Okay, Mr. Karazzi, you want to try to put up the vote?
It didn't come through yet, Jim?
No, let me see. Wrong meeting. All right, let's see if it comes through.
You want to call the people who aren't?
Connie Rule? Yes. Darren McGregor?
Darren, can you just signify aye or nay? Aye.
Jim Modrak?
Yes.
Russ Spacuzza?
Yes.
Vince Scalzo? Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Dr. D'Imperio, you wanted to make a comment?
I did want to make just one brief, but I think very important comment. You know, the challenge through the COVID-19 that we've all experienced and culminated, I think, in the high school graduation. And if Dr. Giansani came up with one plan, he came up with 800 plans. And all of them time-consuming, and all of them a real challenge. And I know he was being pressed by the board, some board members, myself, and the public to please try to have what we called, in our minds, a traditional graduation ceremony, which was held this past Saturday. It went off without a hitch. It was absolutely spectacular. I saw so many happy and rewarded young, I call them now that they're graduated, young men and young women, the staff members who helped him plan that. I actually even received a call Monday morning from another school district saying, in essence, how did you do it, and can you share your plan with us? So Dr. Giansani, you and your staff who put that together multiple times, we came as close to a traditional graduation as we can get. It was, except that we had to divide up the class members, and you're to be given the credit because at that time you were the principal of the high school. So you're commended. I was so impressed.
That's still up till June 30th.
Darn it.
But thank you. Yeah, it was a team effort. Everybody did a great job. And I appreciate the board's involvement. Everyone, faculty, staff, students were great. Parents were wonderful. It was really a splendid day. So thank you. Once again, it was a team effort.
Wonderful.
Nice job
Thank
to
you.
everybody.
Good job.
to
Good job.
Joe also, and all the people helping. It was fantastic. Really good. And I was one of those board members who was the biggest pain. I'll own it.
Yeah, but that was very nice of you, Mr. Christensen, because actually by your pushed me to push them to get back into planning. What can we make happen? What can we make happen? And, we made it happen, and we became, I think, maybe I'm going too far, but I'll say it anyway, a little bit of a model in the regional area about how graduation could be conducted on what I'll call the traditional ceremony.
Right. Yeah, nice job, everybody.
We like high expectations.
Mr. McGregor, will you take each of the 5 items in your committee separately, please? Mr. McGregor?
Audio kind of went in and out, so what's going on here?
Do you want me to read them? Are you good?
Personnel thing, no. So 11 items.
No, we only have 5.
No, Darren, this is the business meeting agenda.
This is the business meeting, Mr. McGregor.
Go ahead and read them, and I'll find it. Put it on.
Okay. The first one is change of assignment. It is moving Mr. Joseph Villani from associate principal at the high school to principal at the high school, effective July 1st, 2020, at an annual salary of $120,000, and to continue to receive all benefits as outlined in the current Act 93 compensation and benefits plan. I need a second. Seconded by Ms. Turner. Any comments?
Good luck.
And congratulations, Mr. Villani, if you can stand up and maybe be seen.
Gotta vote first.
We still have to
We
vote.
have to vote
first, dog.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
Sorry
Don't
about
get too
that. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Sit back down, relax.
Congratulations. I think you also have a lot of credit due with the graduation. You were right there involved with it also, and we're looking forward to a fabulous tenure with you. So at this point, will you please open up the voting?
Voting's open.
We're gonna have to vote. I lost it, so I'm trying to get back in.
You can call roll for whoever's.
Darren McGregor,
Darren, can you vote yes? Okay, yes.
Jim Modrak,
Yes.
Russ Bakuza,
Yes.
Vince Scalzo. I think he said yes.
I think he said yes.
Okay, motion passes 9-0.
Okay, motion passes 9-0. Mr. Villani? Would you like to say a few words? If you would, steal her microphone.
I would just like to say thank you to the board and Dr. D'Imperio for this incredible opportunity. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be named the next high school principal at Bethel Park. I'd like to thank the administrative team, especially Dr. J, the faculty, the staff, the students, parents, community, who have all supported me tremendously since I entered Bethel Park. One of the quick things I learned when I got here real early was the pride and tradition in Bethel Park, the work ethic of those who live here and work here. I learned about that proud tradition, and I am beyond excited to add to that and continue growing and moving the district as well as the high school forward. So I thank everyone. I thank my wife, my students, my family, my kids for their support. And in close, again, let's get to work. I'm ready.
Thank you. Okay, so will you take number 2 then?
Number 2 is appointment of personnel. We're talking about L. Douglas McCausland, Finance Director / Business Manager, effective for a term of 4 years, commencing on or after July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2044, at a prorated salary of $148,000, pending proper clearances and pre-employment documentation. Final review of the contract by the solicitor.
I need a second. Seconded by Mrs. Rule. Any discussion on this? I would just like to comment that you have some big shoes to fill. We have had a fabulous finance director with us for many years. And I know that he has said that he would help you even though he will be retired. And he will help all of us too. But we're looking forward to a good relationship and one that will help us to be fiscally, fiscally responsible. Any other comments? Okay, go ahead.
Just welcome and good luck.
Okay, will you open the voting, please?
Voting's open. Darren McGregor.
Yes.
Jim Modrak.
Yes.
Vince Scalzo.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, motion passes 9-0. We'd like to welcome you to the district, and if you would like to say a few words, there's a microphone available. Mr. McCausland comes to us from Ambridge.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me tonight, and thank the board, thank Dr. D'Imperio. I'm very excited about the opportunity of coming to Bethel Park. I think I mentioned in my one interview that I have some roots here. My sister and brother-in-law and their family live in Bethel Park, have lived there for over 20 years. My oldest nephew is going to be a senior next year at your high school, so they're excited that I'm coming. I'm very excited that I'm coming. I'm happy to come back to Allegheny County, and to be at such a prestigious school district is obviously a great honor. So I know I have tough shoes to follow. I'm looking forward to living up to the task and getting down to work with everyone. So I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, and Doug, I'd like to say too, welcome aboard. And for our public, I would like them to know that you come to us with a wealth of experience in many large school districts, such as the Fox Chapel School District, where you've served, and also on a regional basis, you serve on and chair a lot of significant financial committees, such as the Health Consortium, that brings money into our region. So again, welcome on board. You've just joined a fabulous school district.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. McGregor, number 3.
Effective July 1st, 2020, an annual salary of $87,500, and receive all benefits as outlined in the current.
Mr. McGregor is coming in and out, so I would like to mention that it's James Fodsey, assistant principal at the high school, who will be joining our high school administration at an annual salary of $87,500. And I need a second. Second. Okay, seconded by Mr. Modrak. And comments?
Good luck.
We are excited for you to have this opportunity to become an administrator in the district. I know you've been with the district for a long time already, and you know, we're looking forward to continuing that relationship with you. Okay, voting's open.
Voting's open. Darren McGregor,
Yes.
Jim Modrak,
Yes.
Vince Scalzo.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Motion passes 9-0. Would you like to say a few words?
Just briefly, too, for Mr. Fawzi to get to the position, even though he's been a long-time district employee, which is wonderful. I think when we promote our own, he went through a very rigorous interview process with candidates in and outside the district, and many of whom were very qualified and very good, but he rose to the top. So when one of our own make it, that's always a joy. He had the privilege of sitting down with me, and I gave him all my words of wisdom, and you better be a success. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, Jim, but I try to, as much as I could remember, about what you need to do to be a success. But you are going to be, I know that.
No pressure. All right, Mr. McGregor, number 4.
4 is the approval of staffing changes. A is to close the following positions: the associate principal at the high school and a special education teacher at Neil Armstrong Middle School.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Spicuzza. Any discussion on this item?
Just maybe clarification. Obviously, the associate is because we changed the title, but the special ed position, the elimination, basically, so people know why.
Can someone speak to that? Can you, Ms. Sutton, or Ms. Wells, or Mrs.?
I can.
Okay.
So, part of the special education plan that I will be talking a little bit about to you is what's called the program profile, and looking at the numbers of students that we
We
have.
cannot hear you, Ms. Sutton.
One part of the special education plan is called the program profile. That's due every 3 years, but every year we look at the numbers of students that we have with IEPs at every building and how many teachers we are required to have to meet the caseloads that are required. And you may remember that at Neil Armstrong we also have a lower population in general ed, and there have been less teachers there. So it impacts only by a very small number of students on caseloads, like 2 or 3. So then that will impact Mr. Fawzi's move for the high school.
And the district will still be compliant.
Correct.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So what you just said is that person's going to be moving to where Mr. Fawzi's possibly?
Shift in numbers, then, right?
That's a possibility.
That's a possibility.
right.
Okay.
We have to follow the union contract.
Oh, I see. Oh, I'm sorry then for stepping in there. I just want to make sure no one's being furloughed as a result of us closing this position.
No one's being furloughed.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Voting's open.
Voting's open.
And I'm not going to say it. So.
Darren McGregor,
Yes.
Jim Modrak,
Yes.
Vince Scalzo.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 9-0. Number 5.
Mrs. Dobos, before the board handles this item, I need to ask for either a motion to table it or a motion to postpone the vote. There are items relating to this item that we need to discuss in executive session. We were moving pretty quickly through our executive session items, but we unfortunately did not get to the item that related to this before we had to go into the public session. And I think it's important that we do that before
So we
the
can,
board vote.
can we just table it to next week? Can that be the table?
You would move to postpone vote on this item
Until June 23rd?
June 23rd, correct.
Okay,
That
so-
could be the motion on the floor.
So can I make that? Or no? Somebody else should do that.
Somebody else should make the
Okay.
motion.
So I move to table the
To
motion,
postpone to June 23rd.
postpone it to June? Okay, so I move to postpone the motion on the table until June 23rd.
And I need a second? Second by Mr. Spacuzza. So number 5, the acceptance of that resignation will be, has been motioned to postpone it to the June 23rd meeting next week. And would you open the voting, Mr. Karazi?
It's open. Mr. McGregor?
Yes.
Mr. Modrak?
Yes.
Mr. Scalzo? Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, Mr. Spacuzza?
Thank you, Mrs. Dobus. There's one item under facilities and services this evening. I can't talk, I apologize. The Board of School Directors approves the administration's recommendation to enter into a contract with Nagel Athletic Surfaces to make repairs and replace track surface at the cost not to exceed $564,429.
I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Christensen. Can someone speak about this? Because I know we approved some partial repair, and now it has to be replaced.
The original motion was approved to repair the track at $254,000. Once they started to look at the track, there were a lot more problems than we originally thought. So we had to go with option 1, which is the $564,000. It's a complete replacement of the track surface and the sub base.
And Mr. Karazi, we actually got more life out of the track than we had anticipated.
We did.
Is that correct?
Yes. This was installed in 2006, so we got 14 years out of it.
And Mr. Karazi, this is coming out of capital improvements, correct?
It's capital reserve, yes.
Somebody must have their microphone on. We're getting a lot of feedback.
Ken, I can hear you, but I cannot hear you. I'm trying to speak.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. It's been moved and seconded, and we've had a little bit of discussion. Let's open up the voting.
It's open.
One quick question, Pam. I believe Ken was trying to say something. I heard nothing from Ken.
Oh, Ken, I'm sorry. Ken, were you trying to say something?
You need to speak up a little bit.
Hello? Yes, we can hear you.
Oh. This country.
No relation to
No
Ken. I
relation.
think that's what he was saying.
No relation. Spelled in a different way.
Yeah, he said that the last time, too.
Oh, I was assuming it had a family discount. Oh.
Darren McGregor?
Yes.
Jim Modrak?
Yes.
Vince Scalzo? Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, Kim, will you take other, please?
Under other, the approval of athletic participation, health, and safety plan. The Board of School Directors approves the administration's recommendation to approve the athletic participation, health, and safety plan.
I need a second. Seconded by Ms. Rule. And is there anybody in the room that can talk? Okay, good. Yes.
Thank you. The plan was basically put together by Mr. Sloan. Of course, he shared it with us, and it comes out of the Governor Wolf's regulations with regard to athletics. There's been some question, is it about, the extracurricular activities? And the answer is no. It's only related to athletics. And basically, the guidelines encompass a lot of different aspects, one being sharing of water bottles is prohibited. Students have to bring their own water. The coaches have to wear their masks as much as possible. They should have them on. Students are not to gather closely together. The coaching aspect during the summer, at least at this point in time, is basically on skills, and they're not to be together in any kind of contact measure. And the CDC guidelines are also implemented as well, coming from the governors based on the green aspect. So I don't know if you have any particular questions about it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But we are in compliance based upon the plan that we have to submit. The board has to approve the plan so that we can have our athletes and coaches engaged during the summertime.
Are there any investments we need to make in terms of like medical equipment or being able to take temperatures?
Yes, that's a good question, Mr. Christensen. Well, we did purchase some of those temperature readings that you don't touch the forehead, but from a relatively 6-7 inch distance you can measure. We also have to have hand sanitized cleaning available. The solution has to be available. We have to clean our facility, on a regular daily basis. So those cleaning supplies would incur some costs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
How are we dealing with the water bottles and those kinds of things? Are we going to
Sure.
make some of them available to students if...
No, we're not allowed to. Students have to bring their own water. They have to bring that daily. So that's part of, they carry their own water bottle. Kind of like travel baseball, you bring your own water, travel football, whatever, bring your own water. And that's what the guidelines that we are to implement. We're not allowed to provide water. But we have to provide, obviously, time for students to hydrate, players to hydrate.
Doc,
Okay.
I just have a question. Who's responsible for taking attendance? Because that's...
The coaches are, and there's a form. That's another great question. The coaches have to take daily attendance and also register the temperature on that attendance of what students there, were there any above average temperatures. All those items are the head coach is responsible for that. So it's daily.
Who is going to, I see, educate the athletes, coaches, and staff? Do we have someone in particular who's going to do
Sure.
that?
First of all, the athletic director would do a professional development measure with all the coaches, go over the guidelines, go over the regulations, and from there, the coaches are going to be told exactly what to communicate with their players. Basically, if you don't feel well, don't come to practice, things of that nature. So all those guidelines will trickle down to the player, and they'll be schooled upon what particular steps they should take.
Any other questions? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and we've discussed it, so it's time to vote.
It's open. Darren McGregor.
Darren?
Yes, did you hear me?
Yes.
Jim Modrak.
Yes.
Vince Scalzo.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, motion passes 9-0. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting before we go into our committee meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded. Motion made by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Spacuzzo. Voting up.
It's open. Darren McGregor.
Yes.
Jim Modrak.
Yes.
Vince Scalzo.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, we'll move into our committee agenda at this time. If you can all call up your committee agenda. We will start off, we have several presentations to sort of get the public and us up to date on the various things that are going on in the school district. So at this time, Ms. Sutton and Tyann Neal are going to be making some comments and presentations about the special education plans. Tyann, are you still on? Tyann? She's just calling in, it looks like. Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. At the board meeting last month, there were some questions about the special education plan and its requirements, so I appreciate the opportunity to present a brief overview and answer any additional questions this evening. Also, we are fortunate to have Tyann Neal to co-present with me virtually. As you may know, Tyann is a district resident who happens to work for Pennsylvania Department of Education Bureau of Special Education, so she is a great resource for us this evening and in the future. You may not know this little known fact that Tyann and I actually used to work together. So the special ed plan report is a requirement from the state regulations of 22 PA Code 14.104, which is Chapter 14, the special education regulations. These regulations state that each school district shall develop and implement a special education plan developed every 3 years. This plan must specify the special education programs that operate in the district and those that are operated in the district by intermediate units, area vocational technical schools, and other agencies. There is a special education planning committee requirement that must include a minimum of 1 administrator, 1 special education teacher, 1 general education teacher, and 1 parent. We were able to post for a district committee, and we accepted all applicants. Our committee was comprised of 14 members, including 4 administrators, 4 teachers, both general and special education, 2 counselors, and 4 parents. We are hoping to keep the committee active and to create some subcommittees moving forward for staff and parent input. The required components of the document include demographics, these committee member names, data like enrollment, how we identify specific learning disability, non-resident and incarcerated student oversight, least restrictive environment, behavior support and intensive interagency services. There's a program profile which outlines all the staff that are in special education, how many students are on their caseloads, and lastly, special education personnel development, which are plans for training over the course of 3 years. The final step in the process is for the superintendent and board president to sign the plan acknowledging the special education affirmations, which are assurances that the district will follow the requirements of Chapter 14, which is the state regulations for special education, and the criteria set forth in the special education plan. Now, last month there was a question about budgetary impact. This plan would outline any changes in staffing, and it can be revised during the 3-year time frame with what's called a SEPRIN, another acronym, we love acronyms, which is the Special Education Plan Revision Notice. But for us in the district at this time, there were no additions to make a budgetary impact. And in fact, that you approved reducing the special education teacher at Neal will need to now be a revision to that plan. Another question was whether the plan report was primarily more of a busy work, and the answer to that is the plan is a representation of our current programs and services. I'm proud to report that over the last 17 years that I have worked in Bethel Park School District, our plans have been approved by the Department of Ed, Bureau of Special Education. And lastly, the plan report is maintained on the Special Services webpage for the public to see and review. We received our letter of approval today, and I have that here, and so the final plan report will be posted with the approval letter later this week. Mrs. Flota always posts everything up on the webpage, as you know. And Tyann is here. Tyann, I don't know if you wanted to make any comments, and then we would open it up to questions for myself and Tyann.
Sure. So what I wanted to really focus on was the fact that this is a requirement by OSEP, and they do review these plans as well. They're due on June 30th, so we require them a little ahead of time. And we do focus on all of the components to make sure that the districts are in compliance and that they know the process. Even with our 1306 kids, you may not have this students, but if you did, what would you do with them? So, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of DOJ coming down on districts right now with students that are being placed out of the district. So, you have them in your plan. You recognize that you know exactly what you're supposed to do, that there's not a glitch in that process, you keep moving forward. Like Lori had indicated, and I did watch the board meeting last month, about recognizing the budgetary issues of it, and it could go either way. If you are over caseload, like you've indicated, and which you're not, then we would always make the recommendation that, yes, you need to hire another staff person so that you're not out of compliance with caseload. On the other hand, it can flip. So those students that are placed outside the district, that, let's just say you have a category of maybe high school students, that are maybe 8 to 10 students with emotional support out of the district, that may be able to come back and you can have a class that could affect the budget in a little bit of an area to help it. Because to bring students back to the district is going to help the budget as opposed to sending them out. So I just wanted to comment on that a little bit. And if I could just have a side note for 1 second, I wanted to commend the high school, Dr. J, and his staff as well on commencement ceremony. I think they did a fabulous job, and I want to commend the district as a whole during COVID. I have 4 children, 3 are still in the district at all levels, and I think you guys did an awesome job, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Tyann. So she mentioned a cost savings if we bring students back. Is there a process, or how do you do that? Have we ever done that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tyann, and then I can comment specifically.
Okay, so yeah, those, again, to go back, we always tell that every district that is an IEP team decision. You get some students that are, the LEA is a part of that team, the regular ed and special ed team, teachers are a part of that team. And there are some students, no matter what you do, they need to be placed in those programs. So we're not going to force any district to bring them back. However, we see districts like keep placing kids out, and you have this overwhelming number of students in a particular age category, we may make that recommendation, and it does help the district that way. So, but it definitely is an IEP team decision, and it depends on the need of the student and where they are placed, for sure.
So if I understand your answer, it can come from, the recommendation can come from the IEP meeting to bring the student back in, or the state can also make that recommendation to us? Is that what
So if you have 15 students in emotional support in high school, we would make the recommendation like, hey, could you consider opening up an emotional support class within your district? And you all would look at that. You have space, you have this capacity to have teachers that could support those types of students. There's behavior support plans that would need to be in place, maybe a behavior specialist, and you have to weigh that among what the student's needs are and what the district's able to provide.
Thank you. Can you speak to that too, Ms. Sutton?
Yes, I can comment that we even had a student one time that came back to the high school, was in an out-of-district placement where we're paying the tuition for the private school, and the IEP team felt that we could accommodate the child in our least restrictive environment, and we set up those supports that was successful. Tyann's looking more to systemically, and if you would look on page 17 when you have a chance, it shows how many students are exactly in out-of-district placements. And what we don't have is a large enough population out of district at one level right now. Now that could change over time, but our out of district numbers really have come down over the last 10 years, and we shared that data with you, a longitudinal 10-year look at what our least restrictive environment numbers are. So I'm really proud of that, and that's because of all my colleagues and all of us working together to make that happen.
So did I just hear what you said correctly, in that we don't have enough numbers of students at particular grade levels to make it feasible to, at this point in time, bring them all back and hire a special education or emotional support teacher? Right now the numbers are low, too low to do that.
They're too low, and they're spread out over a multitude of grade levels.
I just wanted to make sure.
Not clustered, that is correct.
Okay.
And we keep, even though this is only due every 3 years, we look at this every year. Every year, we're always analyzing, and the principals, well, will tell you, they don't like, we look at data a lot.
We do have many students, I wouldn't say many, we do have several students that have both a diagnosis of, I would say, a learning disability as well as some emotional needs. So we have students that we service in our regular learning support program that really could benefit from an emotional support period or two a day. So if you couple that all together, it might not look like bringing back all the kids from outside placements would satisfy that, but I think when you couple it with what we have within house, we may be able to better serve all the kids if we had the ability to have a program like that. Just something to consider for the future.
That is accurate, and we are.
Say that again.
That was Dr. Jansani.
That's a great comment, and those are things that you do need to look at as a whole. So I appreciate that. And Lori, as he has said, your advisor would definitely make that recommendation prior to approval of your plan. But based on, what he has observed at this point, he approved the plan, obviously, as Lori said, and so therefore you can move forward. But seeing those data points in the future, I definitely think that's something that could be looked at, and I think that's a great comment.
And I would agree with what Dr. J said as well. That is something we've been talking about, and we would like to keep our special education committee going forward, as I had said, to gain more parent input, and maybe that would be something that we would, of course, bring to the board at some point. We didn't feel that this year was maybe the appropriate time, but I think it's part of a bigger planning process that I understand that you may be embarking upon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Sutton or for Ms. Neal?
No, thank you, both of you, for the update. I asked a lot of those questions about the reporting, and part of those were You know, I do get a sense that, you know, with all the state reporting, and it's not just due to this, but it's through a lot of different areas, that number one, it costs money, and two, it can take away the classroom instruction time, because we have all of these state guidelines that seem to be imposed pretty easily, but yet school districts aren't funded to really deliver on those requirements. So, you know, these state requirements it's a cost to the district, okay, at the same time that, you know, revenue sharing tends to be, you know, decreasing. So if we're going to do the work, we should get something really strategic from it. Like, what are we going to do different over the next 3 years because we did this plan, or is this plan just document what we're going to do anyway? I mean, that's where my questions were.
And that's another great point to bring up. Like, you're also monitored by the Bureau of Special Education, and when we monitor you, we also look at your data, because as Lori indicated, she's constantly updating that data and reviewing it and looking at it. And when we come in, we also kind of match that up with what you're doing and making sure it's coinciding with the same data in your plan. So it is like a live document that the Bureau looks at. And, you know, Bethel Park, I think they do a pretty good job of keeping up with that and moving forward with what we need to do. So that's a great comment too.
I'm excited to hear that it's a live document, that it continually can be updated and revised as you're going along. And I also like the idea that you're going to continue having those parental meetings for input and so forth. I think that's wise.
Yeah, and every time that Lori goes in and makes a change, or the principals or superintendent to go in and make a recommendation for a change, they do put that in there, and it comes up as that SDPRN, which he was speaking of, and then we would look at that and approve it over caseload and hire a new teacher or deleting a teacher or anything like that. So, yeah, it is a live document in that capacity, so.
Thank you. Any
you.
other questions for them? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay.
This is Darren.
Yes.
My comment to this is that, you know, we've all known that I think emotional support at the high school is extremely important, not only at the high school but throughout the grades. At some point we collect data to look forward to a more developed program to meet the needs of these kids, whether their primary diagnosis is emotional support or their secondary diagnosis is such. I think we need to keep an eye on this. There's a lot of good things that happen in these rooms. I've been witness to that for 28 years, so just want to put that on record.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? All right, so at this time, our second presentation is, did I just hear somebody?
I'm sorry, Pam.
Sure.
I don't want to limit that emotional support. I know that was the example I gave, but I don't want to limit the district of seeking future, bringing back students for just emotional support, all of them. I think Dr. David mentioned learning support, like you may have learning support kids out, but just looking at it as a whole of all the disability categories. So I didn't want to leave that out. I think that's important too. So, but I think you guys are doing a great job with that. So just keeping that in mind.
Thank you. Okay, our second presentation then is from Ms. Wells and Mr. Johnson. Are you both still with us? And are you in the building or are you remote? Ms. Wells, are you remote too? Okay. Okay, so I don't know how you're going to present, but go ahead.
Scheduling and planning for the 2021 year. I want to thank Mr. spearheading a lot of this and for being with me tonight and presenting. I'm going to give a brief overview of our plans for the 2021 year. While some of the elements of our intervention program will remain the same as the previous talk time. For example, we will have rigorous instruction. It will be standard-based. It will be real-time. It will be data-driven. There will be some progress monitoring. It will have data tracking, and there will be federal compliance things that we will continue to meet. There are some changes in the program after conversations that the principals have had with teachers, after meetings we've had with reading support, and after conversations that the principals have had as a group. And I would ask that Mr. Johnson detail some of those items. In fairness, we are still working out a few of the particulars, but this is our progress up until this point.
Before you continue, is this the plan that Dr. O'Rourke sent to us that we can reference as you're talking? Okay, so board members, if you go in your email, Dr. O'Rourke sent us something, and there's an attachment to it with a chart that will help you to understand, I think, what both Ms. Wells and Mr. Johnson are talking about.
Would they be able to share out for the audience who's watching along in Facebook, share out the slides on WebEx?
Is it possible for them to share out those slides on WebEx?
They should be able to share from the WebEx session they're in right now.
Okay, so either one of you could share that document and put it on the screen if you would like while you're talking.
I can speak to what Beth asked me to talk to, and if she wants to share that, that's fine.
I mean,
Is that okay if I start now?
Sure.
if you want to share it to me, Beth, I can share it.
Just make sure that you put draft at the very top in big letters somehow, because this is still in transition. This isn't the final document. That's why I'm a little concerned about sharing it out. So, go ahead. Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Yes, thank you everybody for having us tonight. And in relation to Mrs. Wells' summary, when we last met and shared some talking points with the board, I think that our main motivation, meaning the elementary principals, was to develop a program that was a bit more flexible than hot time. And we also had some additional motivations relative to increasing the amount of regular education mathematics instruction in every elementary classroom. And in addition to that, really devoting our reading specialist time back to reading instruction entirely. So as you work through those are really the motivation behind a lot of the work that we've done over the past couple of months related to this program. So what we have in place now is and as Mrs. Wells can speak to in relation to the federal grant, there are some items that we have to use as a foundational piece in order to build the program so that we remain in compliance with the federal grant for Title I. So one of those items would be the acknowledgement that we cannot remove students for reading intervention from any regular instructional period. So those regular instructional periods would be things like English language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, special areas. We have to have a set-aside time period in the student day in order to provide intervention. So we started there and developed a program for grades 1 through 4, and I'll come back to grade K in a minute. But in grades 1 through 4, the program will consist of 30 minutes a day, 3 days per week, in which time time, the reading specialist will provide reading intervention support services to students who qualify for that program. Again, that's 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week. During that time period, while the reading intervention teachers are providing those services for reading, classroom teachers will keep students in their classrooms as well, the students that do not qualify for the reading intervention program. So during those 3 days, the classroom teacher is gaining those additional 30 minutes, 3 days per week, in order to provide classroom-based, standards-based intervention, which can be extensions as well, related to ELA and mathematics. And that was really one of our goals too, was to provide more classroom time for the classroom teachers. So they'll pick up that time, as I said, 3 days a week for 30 minutes. The other 2 days per week are reference what I mentioned earlier with the increased mathematics instruction in regular ed. So the goal there is that the classroom teachers will have an additional 30 minutes per day, 2 days per week, to increase their mathematics instruction across the elementary level. Are there any questions about that framework?
The question I have, Mr. Johnson, is, and this is Mrs. Turner, in the pull-out of 3 days a week for those that need reading specialists, is it possible to do a pull-out also for the GIEPs to give them the additional time that Hawk Time had given at times?
Mr. Johnson, one of the comments that we heard repeatedly dealt with the reduced time for science and social studies once we had the previous program in place. Is this new program going to allow for additional time for science and social studies?
Yes, I think so. And I would caution, I wouldn't say it's additional time. But where it helps us there is it really gives more control over the student day to the classroom teacher.
Okay.
And it'll give the classroom teacher more time to work with in order to, I think, be able to better fit in the allotted minutes for this subject area. As it stands now, ELA is considered a 120-minute per day subject area at the elementary, math is 60 minutes, and science/social studies is 40 minutes. So when we had the hot time period built in, which was also 40 minutes, that just made the day very tight. And I think when there were overruns, for good reason, frankly, if the teacher was trying to finish a lesson or concerned about a formative assessment in mathematics, and wanted to make sure she or he didn't leave the children without any reteaching. And I think what suffered in this particular instances were things like science and social studies. But because of the reduction to 3 days per week, because of the reduction to 30 minutes, and adding that time back into the classroom teacher schedule, I think that will help them better manage that and not feel as hard pressed. And
Thank you. That sounds good to me.
I have another question. In the time for support prior to Hawk time, we were the IST teachers and the reading specialists were able to see more students. Is that the goal again? Because that is a large concern. That as I listened to teachers, there were limited to 6 students that could go to the Hawk time for specialized areas. And there were a lot of students that could start to fall through the cracks that weren't falling through the cracks prior to Hawk time because the teachers could meet and have an intervention at that time so that student could get the extra help that they need. Is that going to be able to come back?
Yes, I think you're speaking to the flexibility I mentioned at the outset. It's one of our goals, and I think you'll see that really increased flexibility with the IST program, which I didn't get to yet to cover. But what we have in mind for IST, I think, will provide that flexibility back into their schedule. Mrs. Turner said that they will be able to reach more kids, and frankly, and the important thing here is in more different ways. To be able to be really responsive to particular student needs in these buildings and build their day according to those needs. So that's my hope for the program relative to IST. I didn't finish with the reading specialists. Like I had mentioned the basic framework and structure, but it's also been a long-standing recommendation with the state and federal guidelines that we move more towards some push-in type of work with our reading specialists as well. So by reducing the 3 days for the pull-out intervention during that intervention block, what that also enables us to do is allow the reading specialists in each building to push into ELA classrooms with a specific focus on grades A through 2 during the other 2 days per week. And I'm excited about that too because I think that's always a great environment. When you're able to have 2 teachers in the classroom, especially a reading specialist with your classroom teacher teaching ELA. And for the reading specialist to be able to provide interventions for the student who's on her roster during that regular ELA time, I think will also be very beneficial. And then you had brought up IST. I've been talking mostly about reading and the reading specialist. So where we really see that IST focus coming in is in mathematics through a lot of small group instruction, co-teaching models, individual student work, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about just the being able to reach more students. If we build the IST program with flexibility and understanding that we're going to use those IST teachers to provide student-specific interventions that arise throughout the school year, if we have the flexibility to do that, I think you'll get the result that you're looking for. Mr. Johnson, it's Aaron McGregor. So, based on your report and your plans, are you saying that no longer will reading specialists have to teach math during these intervention periods? That is correct, sir.
Mr. Johnson, this is Vince Gallo. I have a question about the science and the social studies again. Will there be continuity among all 5 elementary buildings where if it's, again, I'm just throwing out any number, if it's 40 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever number we're looking at, it's going to be consistent across the board with all elementary buildings. And how many minutes will every building
to your question, I think the first part is building the flexibility back into the classroom teacher's day to be able to feel that he or she has the time to provide adequate instruction in science and social studies. So I think that's step one, structurally. But step two, to be completely honest, I think when I've shared this before, and I'll share it again as a recommendation. I feel that we're in need of some committee work as it relates to elementary science and elementary social studies. And I think that just traditionally, the way you develop that consistency across school buildings is through that committee process, a curriculum committee process, to address areas of need in relation to the curriculum and to set expectations. In addition to us not having any of those committees for a while, the other issue that we confronted was the science program that we used for many years, as long as I've been in Bethel Park. When I presented this, I believe, last school year, that was the asset science program. So I feel that contributed to some of the angst that teachers may have felt related to science, was just the chaos surrounding the program and how that program was going to be supplied with the company not being in business. So, there were third-party suppliers that were popping up and efforts were being made to provide supplies through those suppliers, but it was more chaotic than what they would typically be used to for that. So my recommendation to you on that, or from my perspective where I sit, would be to pursue some committee work related to curriculum and science and social studies at the elementary level. Sir.
Thank you. Do you have more presentation, Mr. Johnson?
Well, it depends. That's in essence the reading support component that we put together. I skipped kindergarten before because the kindergarten part will be driven largely by the grant that the district is involved in right now with the state focused on reading intervention. So the reading support teacher will also be involved in that program. Providing interventions for kindergartners 3 days per week for 45 minutes per day as per the requirements of that grant program. That will also, Mrs. Turner, include the IST teacher as one of the pull-out components for intervention in that program, as well as class primary learning support teachers. The additional 2 days there can also be used by the reading support teacher in the kindergarten classroom.
Okay, I have an additional couple of questions that are on the bottom of this sheet.
Is someone going to talk about the schedule? Is that what your questions are about? Ms. Wells or Mr. Johnson, are you going to talk about the schedule at the bottom of that sheet?
I certainly can. It's up to you folks if you'd like me to.
Somebody, I would like somebody to.
Or if you want to go over it, and then I can ask my questions if you don't answer them.
Yeah, sure. There was some concern raised to us in our conversations with some teachers in the Federation about the elementary scheduling process. A few years back, we moved to the block schedules. When we reference it as a block schedule, what that means is essentially that the specials were combined. For many years in Bethel Park, teachers had students had a special area class schedule in the morning and one in the afternoon. And in order to, the main thrust behind going to a block schedule was to provide more consistent and lengthier blocks of instructional time for the regular education teachers. So the specials were, instead of being separated morning and afternoon, those two specials have been grouped together for the past few years, so that the student's special block in a particular grade level would be either the morning or the afternoon for their special. I think among the elementary principal group, there's no strong preference during our last staff meeting of the year, just to try to ascertain their input relative to that. And I would say that although there are some in my building who would prefer to have the more chunkier day with the scattered special, that the majority of my staff still prefers to have the longer instructional blocks. So that's one big difference. And then I think there are some benefits to the block schedule that are related to things like common plan time. When special classes are all scheduled during the same block for a particular grade level, it provides some common plan time on a regular daily basis for teachers in that grade level. You can still get common plan time if you do the non-block schedule. However, it's a little bit more scattered. You might not have it every day. It might be 3 days a week for that grade level group of teachers as opposed to 5 days per week. So that would be one difference. Another difference relates to some programming that we offer right now. We started to implement co-teaching in 4th grade across the elementary buildings a couple of years ago. And that program is viewed favorably by all the principals. And it would be more difficult to be able to schedule co-teaching if we had the specials more scattered throughout the day. And the reason for that is just because when teachers have specials at different times, then they may be teaching math and ELA at different times in that grade level, depending on what their special schedules are. So in order for co-teaching to work, you essentially need your teachers that have students who participate in that program to be teaching ELA at the same time so that we can implement co-teaching during that block. So those, I would say, are the two biggest programmatic issues that I think you can face if you operate under a different schedule with special that scatters them around the day. Now, that said, when blocks went into place, we lost 5 minutes off of each library class and 5 minutes off of each physical education class. So they went from 30-minute specials to 25-minute specials, just for those two in particular. So in running the block schedule, they would have to remain at 25 minutes, or at least physical education. But we could probably get library back to 30, but the physical education would have to remain at 25 under the block schedule due to the fact that 3 of the buildings are not a standalone cafeteria. We share the cafeterias in the gym, or the gym uses the cafeteria, et cetera. So we have to keep PE at 25 minutes if we stay with the blocks. If we move back to a scattered special, then we could easily implement 30-minute library and 30-minute PE classes again, because the specials, we have the ability to scatter the special more easily throughout the day, not have to fit them into those blocks.
So from my point of view, with all of the opening of the schools and all of the aspects of scheduling that are going to have to be addressed even to open the school, and whether or not we are full-time or part-time or scattered days or every other day, or I think there are a lot of questions to be asked at this time. So this sounds to me to be a gnarly kind of problem that needs worked on, and probably a committee would need to be maybe created this next year to continue working on, the aspects of the scattered or the block, because we could, recommend something, and then whatever plan we have coming up in place might replace that plan. So personally, I'm comfortable putting it into your hands, the principal's hands at this point in time, and the administrator's hands for this next year. And I would ask that you would continue to work on it and get more input and more data and so forth and so on, in order to make a plan where library and phys ed aren't cut 5 minutes, so that we have full amount of time for it, and so that I love the idea of co-teaching that the block scheduling, allows for, but for an elementary student, a kindergarten or a first grader to have 100 and how many minutes of instruction, that seems to me to be a little bit of a long period of time for them to maintain their attention span. So I appreciate, I know other board members have comments at this time, but I appreciate the work that you've done, and I think it's a work in progress.
See, I do have one comment on
Yes.
this, and just a question. I agree that, at this point, looking at the, pluses and minuses, I don't think there's a decision for the board to make at this point. When I look at some of those pros and cons, they do kind of come across as a little bit as preferences or kind of features. What would be interesting to know is what's the difference on outcomes? Are there any studies out there that says one approach has a difference in outcomes on test scores or whatever it is? Okay, that's something that I would care about. The things in here are more preferences. The other thing is what do either of these approaches, what impact do they have on staffing requirements? Okay, does one approach tend to drive, higher staff or less flexibility in terms of who does what, who teaches what? That would be important, that I think the board would absolutely want to know if we're going to implement one approach over the other.
Right. As to your first question, I don't know of any studies that I've ever come across related to the impact purely of scheduling on outcome. And by outcome, I'm presuming you mean performance, student performance.
Right. Yeah.
But what I can tell you is what you're reading as preferences, I think, are that they're more like best practices or what are considered best practices. Things like common planning time and co-teaching. And the block, I think, enables us to do those more easily in an elementary schedule. Now, I don't, and back to Mrs. Davis's point too, I don't personally feel that there's a good and a bad here, or one that's absolutely right and one that's absolutely wrong. And I think that's where it does become a matter of preference. There are benefits to both, and I think it depends on your perspective. There are certainly elementary teachers that work for me that much prefer to have a little longer period of instructional time, and they take it upon themselves to break that time up for the students with movement breaks and things like that, so that they like to have them for that length of time to accomplish what it is that they want to accomplish. There are other teachers that work for me, and I would say probably more so in the primary grades, that would align with what Mrs. Davis said about the length of time for an elementary child, and would be more interested in having that time broken up a bit. So I don't think it is an issue of one being far superior to the other. I just do think it is a matter of preference and what it is that we feel are most important. If we think common plan time, 5 days a week, is very important for our teachers at grade level. If that's most important to us, then I would say, the block gives us the ability to do that. If we think co-teaching is a very important thing in the school district and something that we want to continue, the block gives us the ability to do that. If we feel like our main focus is making that day back to more like it used to be for an elementary student, with a special in the morning and their lunch break at midday and then another special in the afternoon, and sort of breaking their day up a bit more. That's the most important thing, then I would say we should move away from the block, because it's certainly not like that, in the block schedule.
one way, this is just an idea, you don't have to do it, but way you may get to determining is there a benefit of one approach over the other is for these kind of preferences you have listed here or best practices, whatever you want to call them, is ask so what. So what? What's the impact on the quality of education for any of these or the cost of education? If there is no impact, it's kind of irrelevant, okay? It's just a preference.
Well, I think that it's pretty accepted that some amount of common plan time, has a positive impact on education and on student outcomes. And it speaks to what Mr. Scalzo said earlier about consistency in science and social studies instruction. For teachers in the same grade level to be able to have time plan together to stay on the same page, I do think that's important. It's not impossible to provide that if we scatter the special. There's just less.
Okay.
Can you hear me? This is Ted Agnew.
Yes.
I just had a question. We just digested a lot of information around block time, around block schedules, around basically elementary education. And you brought up a few minutes ago, if we prioritize one thing, this is the way to go. If we prioritize another thing, that's the way to go. Should this have been visited in a larger way as we build the strategic plan, as opposed to investing all this time right now prior to beginning a strategic plan?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If you're asking my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with including that in the strategic plan process. I don't recall ever being, I've been on a couple of those committees, and I don't recall that ever being part of it, but scheduling is important, even when you look at, and this I think speaks to what Mr. Christensen was probably referencing earlier, when you look at how the state evaluates administrators, effectively developing a schedule is one of those components. And part of the thing that is considered important is the maximization of instructional time. So, I certainly think that would be a worthwhile endeavor.
Mr. Johnson, it's Vince Scalzo, and I have another question for you. We reached out to other districts just to kind of take a look at all of the elementary programs in, let's say, Peters Township, Upper St. Clair, South Fayette, Pine Ridge, and Fox Chapel, and so on. I don't know if we've networked out just to kind of look at what other districts are doing. I don't know if they'd be willing to kind of explain what their outcomes are like under their program.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have contacts maybe with administrators from other districts.
We did that pretty significantly a few years ago, and it's really a wide swath of different approaches when it comes to scheduling at the elementary level. But I do think you do see some things that are pretty standard across the board. So one of those things that you would even see in all the surrounding area is some type of intervention period. Whether that intervention period would typically take place in a blocked time frame in order to provide intervention across a grade level all at one time. That would be a standard thing that you see. But what makes it difficult to do those types of comparisons sometimes is the building structures are so different, district to district. And because those building structures are so different, the staffing is very different. So when you see some districts that might operate with an elementary center as opposed to neighborhood schools, they usually have, if they're in a center environment, they have a lot more interventionists available to them in that one particular building. And typically more flexibility scheduling just because, they also have more special area teachers and those sorts of things because, the entire grade levels in that particular district would be in that school. If you go the opposite route in the saying one is good or bad, it's just different. So in our case, you know, we tend to share oftentimes special area teachers. And what that does is it limits, you know, and by share, I mean, I might have an art teacher 3 days per week, then an art teacher goes to another building 2 days per week. And what that does is it limits the flexibility you have when building a schedule because you have less staff available, less amount of time. So, I mean, just to answer your question about the comparison, what we found when we looked, the last time we did that was when we were implementing this block. And I remember, you know, thinking that at the time, everything was just really dependent on the structure of, like, the larger macro sort of structure that we saw in the school district.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, this is Mrs. Turner again. Can teaching blocks be created with special classes being taught in the morning and the afternoon? So you break up the block in the morning and the afternoon, especially in K to 2. Especially in K to 2, I would ask that the principals look at that.
It's hard to do it. It would be hard to do it in just K to 2. Probably that's probably an understatement. It would probably be impossible to do it in just K to 2. And referencing back to what I just talked about with the availability of special area teachers. So you would, if you did that in K to 2, you would think forcing yourself into doing that in 3 and 4 as well. But, you know, I created a draft along those lines, trying to accomplish what you said. And, you know, what I ended up with was, instead of the 4 blocks that we have presently, we just sort of ended up with 8 blocks. You know, the main difference being that, because you have to schedule, you know, art won't fit in that block because it's 60 minutes, not 30 minutes, that sort of thing. So you end up with some scattered, a little bit of the more scattered nature where, so you do lose a little bit of common plan and that sort of thing. The main difference there is that there's just the instructional time the teachers have the kids for at certain lengths is just less that way, and more broken up. And that just goes back to the preference that we're seeking. If we think that's the more appropriate way to go, then we could certainly schedule it that way. If we feel like the longer instructional time periods are the most important, then I would recommend IQ.
What I would like would be some further looking at, again, as Mrs. Dobis had said, with the social studies and science times, and with the special times, putting the library and gym back into that area. So, I mean, initially you've answered my questions. And Mrs. Sutton, I don't know if you can answer this or Mr. Johnson, but in doing the co-teaching, did that help with the LRE?
Yes, co-teaching is related to LRE because it's part of special education, yes.
Did we see a significant increase, or was there, you can share it later, I mean.
We've been gaining over, like I said, the last 10 years, meeting those, we're very, very close, and Mr. Johnson and I had a conversation today that at his building, that did push him into the green for LRE at Lincoln. Is that correct, Mr. Johnson?
So to move us along here, Ms. Walls, is there anything you wanted to add to these comments?
No, I think everyone brought up some really good points and some things that we can continue to look at. One of the comments about looking at other districts, I know in attending some of the curriculum meetings that when I tell people that we have the full 120 minutes of an ELA block, which is recommended for our elementary students. Many schools in the area do not have that block. A lot of schools have 9 minutes. So I know that's something to be really proud of, that our principals are able to create schedules, you know, giving the students that full 120 minutes. And as Mr. Duffin said, they are trying to look for additional time for some mathematics instructions. So I think, you know, he and the other principals have done an excellent job trying to consider everyone's input in this plan.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you, for your comments and your presentation, and we trust that you will continue to work on it throughout the summer to come up with what is best for our students and also for our staff. Thank you very much. You too. Can you, whoever put this on the screen, can you take it off? And at this time, I think Ms. O'Rourke, Dr. O'Rourke, you're going to talk to us a little bit about transitioning to the next school year based on some of the survey that you sent out. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. We had done a survey last week, and in the survey, we sent it out through, Vicki was kind enough to send it out through our mass email, and also had it available online. Basically, the survey was asking a variety of different questions about our educational program, both at the elementary level and at the secondary level, and the comfort level of parents and how they felt in retrospect and reflection of our plan where the COVID-19 educational plan, the continuity of education plan took place. In that, we had 1,034 responses on the secondary survey and 623 responses on the elementary survey. With that in mind, the survey responses provided us some insight as far as comfort level on if we are returning to school for the 2021 school year and what that looks like. So that information will be used to inform our program moving forward as we plan for the 2021 school year. And we're working collaboratively as a group to provide that information to parents as quickly as we possibly can in a manner that is meaningful based on the different possibilities that could exist. Our overall plan right now is we are preparing for the worst and hoping for the best kind of philosophy. We're starting with the plan that all of our students would be back in our parking order, which is predominantly what the majority of our parents would like to see, with some precautions as far as physical space and wearing of masks, recommendations that are existing. In that, there are some tough questions that we have to ask as we move forward. One of which is, if we have to put 6 feet in between people, how do we transport, how do we work our classrooms? Many of our neighboring school districts are going to A days and B days, or A weeks and B weeks, where certain numbers of children would come on certain days and that kind of thing. So we have the survey available, and what I did, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity this evening, I opened the survey back up because I'm hoping that maybe some of our parents that might be listening to this in the next few days, this board meeting, will go in and respond to those survey questions to give us some feedback. So I'm open to the information that all of our parents can provide to us as we move forward in planning our program and trying to do similar to what Mrs. Neal had said earlier, is planning a program that is successful for our children, both academically and emotionally, and for our families in consideration of doing the best we possibly can in the circumstances that we're being dealt. So, a little bit of a summary of the survey in and of itself.
Thank you, Dr. O'Rourke. Now, where can people find this survey, or is it in an email that was sent out to parents?
It was in Vicki's weekly e-blast
Okay.
last week, and I'm also going to ask her to resend it out tomorrow in an email blast that she does on a daily basis. And I believe that if you go onto our website as well, it was available in the COVID resources that were at the bottom of the page and clicked on that. So we'll make sure that it's accessible early tomorrow morning in those places if anybody wants to access it. If anybody has any trouble, please reach out to me, email me, and I'll be sure to get you that information to get your input.
So could you just tell us a little bit about what does the timeline look like for coming up with the plan for how we go back to school? You know, can we, I don't know, we're going to have a meeting next month, right? At some point.
Strategic plan. Yeah, well, yeah, we're going to have a meeting too.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it'd be good for you to come back with, here's the plan, here's, you know, do you need extra investment? You know, how, if we're going to have the split schedule, and I don't even know if these are things you're considering, but if we're going to have a split schedule, does that mean that students are in the classroom half the time and, you know, online learning the other half? How do we make the online learning legitimate this time? Because, you know, we can't continue that students with a 75% and above get an A. We've got to be in a legitimate grading scale, legitimate instruction. So, I mean, what's the plan to, what's the timing to review what the plan looks like?
And before you go on further, I did get a telephone call from Representative Mihalik this morning that reminded all of us that in order to get all of our funding from the state, the legislation is written that it's 180 days brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So as we plan, there may have to be an exception we have to ask for if there is some situation going on. So to Dr. O'Rourke and whoever else is on that committee, please be very cognizant of that.
Yeah. I mean, is this something where we could have a plan, and, you know, to review next month? We almost have to, because, you know, a month from now, we're only a month away from the beginning of school.
We've been doing a lot of preliminary planning with the group, and I think Dr. O'Rourke mentioned it. The initial plan folds around, and I'll call it the assumption that we will be able to go back completely to brick and mortar in August, and the fallback plan will be a hybrid of that if we're not able to do it. So that's where we are at this point, and we'll continue to refine that plan. You know, there are so many variables that need to be thought through. For example, if we go back and there has to be social distancing, do we have enough buses? How do we handle that schedule?
Right.
So there are a ton of things that need to occur. But yes, Mr. Christensen, we are working on that. We should have something. We're planning right now what we're calling 3 retreats. One at the end of June, beginning of July, and one in August. And it addresses that as a major subject of our plan and the refinement of our
Yeah,
plan.
I think it'd be good, you know, an outcome of the summer, an outcome of the, you know, the pandemic over the last couple of months would be to have a proactive online learning plan, because we were very reactive. You know, we just kind of, we got through, okay? But I think people would recognize that we can't continue to give students A's for 75% completion, and probably the engagement was relatively low from a lot of the students. So if we could work on that plan that, you know, so it's a little bit more proactive and delivers high quality education virtually, because I think we have to have that in our tool set, because it could happen again.
One of the goals that we've talked about is that, well, one of the objectives, one of the goals is that whatever we do has to be totally curriculum related and totally instructionally related, based on our present grading system, our present curriculum, and so forth.
Yeah.
So we're well aware of, you know, we're well aware of that. And you know, I know it wasn't the ideal. I don't think any administrator or staff member would say it was, but I would just remind everyone that we were one of the first districts to come out with a plan for distance learning, online learning, and one of the first to go public with that plan of engaging students, passing out Chromebooks, making sure that every student was connected digitally, and we were all a part of Ron, myself, Janet, who are here, Lori, Zeb, bringing parents and community and kids in to pass out Chromebooks and so forth. And I'm not saying that your point is not an important one.
I wasn't
it's a very important one.
I wasn't
Now
trying to
that
make it
they
a criticism.
No,
Okay,
I
no,
know that.
but
know that, Mr.
I think we had all recognized that the quality of education in the last marketing period wasn't on the same level as the first 3 marketing
Right.
periods. So how do we take away that difference? How do we make them the same? You know, that's the kind of plan we should be
That's
working
the-
on in the summer. Now that we've been through this.
That's the central question. That's the key objective. That's what
Yeah.
we're striving
Mhm.
to accomplish.
And I think the sooner we can get some plans together with the variables, the AIU just reported that they got over $1 million in monies from different foundations, and they will be giving it out to, not giving it out, but schools will have to apply, that if we need any specific monies for specific, things that we'll be doing to get schools started, we need to get that to them rather quickly. That money's not going to last long.
Okay, thank you, Dr. O'Rourke. Any more questions for her? Okay, I believe we have a comment on the presentations, right?
Yes, there was from Marcia Slezak Bird, 5851 Bryan Drive, and she writes, "The block scheduling was very frustrating. It is too long for an elementary child to sit, and the specials break up the day so the children can concentrate. I think block scheduling is also increasing behavior issues with some children. It also limits the specials' ability to change their setup between the grades. A gym or art space needs to be set up differently for a 4th grader versus a kindergarten. I love Hawk Time, but block scheduling is a major issue." And again, that's from a parent, Marcia Slezak-Burt.
Thank you. Mr. Scalzo, will you take the 6 items underneath Curriculum Committee? And I think that most of them, with your approval, should be consent agenda, except for number 3. I think number 3 we should hold out for the regular meeting. But go ahead, Mr. Scalzo. Well, is it about what?
It's about Hawk Time. And
Okay.
Okay, this is from Shayna Willis, 5844 Monongahela Avenue. I wanted to thank Mrs. Sutton and Mrs. Neal for their presentation and Dr. Johnson's for his hard work and dedication to all our children. I also wanted to thank Mrs. Walsh-Turner for asking Mr. Johnson a question regarding the GIEPs. I am very concerned that the focus and intervention support seems to be shifting away from Hawk Time model and allowing for remediation as well, reinforcement and enrichment. The model worked very well for my children in our district, or for many children in the district. In particular, the enrichment group is of special concern for me. Parents with children who have designations under Chapter 16 special education law often feel like their kids are an afterthought. In fact, with the exception of Mrs. Walsh-Turner, unless I missed it, the entire special education conversation revolved around Chapter 14 special education law. We're told every child needs to learn to do mundane things. Your children will be fine no matter what. But our children are not fine. Our children sit in classrooms where they are given materials that are below their level, oftentimes materials they have already mastered. That means while their peers spend their days learning new materials, learning to study, and learning to develop growth mindset, our children stagnate. My dear friend describes it best. She said the schools for our Chapter 16 special education population is like sitting in a meeting that could have been an email all day, every day. I think we all know what this is like and can imagine the frustration. Will anyone be placed on the special education committee to represent these children and their special needs? That's Shayna Willis, 5844 Monongahela Avenue.
Are there any enrichment gifted GIEP teachers on that, parents on that committee?
That's something we can talk about, but that was specifically for Chapter 14.
Oh,
Not
okay.
16.
Okay.
But we want to look at all student service needs.
So
from-
would that be a separate committee then, focused on GIEP?
We could look into that.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't make sense, because you're talking about different issues, but if it makes sense to have another committee.
Yeah, okay.
Vince.
Somebody wants to... Go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So are we looking at each item, right? So that we can move it to the consent agenda? Is that what you wanted me to do?
Yes, it looks to me, I don't know if you've looked at them all, but it looks to me like 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 could go to the consent agenda.
I mean, just to accelerate this a little bit, I mean, the board members have seen this. You know, before we've been reading through these almost like we're moving them.
That's why yeah.
Yeah, I mean, should we just open
Yeah.
it up to say, would anybody like any held out from the
Right,
consent?
right. And I'd like 3 held out for the
Okay.
regular voting meeting. Anybody else want any of the other ones held out?
Can we ask a question at this
Sure.
time?
This
And
is
then I can
it's a committee
probably-
meeting. You can ask questions.
Then I can probably have it. My question is, why are we doing independent studies for 14 marketing students?
Miss Wells, can you answer that question?
Sure. So I have the same question. I think that's a kudos to our marketing department and teachers. The students have been, a lot of the students are involved in NECA and have been through the courses that we offer, and they want to continue their education and looking at business careers or in marketing endeavors. And so she has 14 students this year who have written proposals for the independent study opportunity. They're all seniors.
Oh, did you have another question on this, on that same one? I was going to bring up a different.
No, I
request
think
to hold
that's
out.
it, but could we again encourage a committee to look at this? Because that's a lot of kids with an independent study and one teacher.
What do you want? I couldn't hear what
I
you
said,
said.
could we ask, in the future or as we plan for next year, could we look at this again? Because that's a lot of independent studies for one teacher that's also teaching different additional courses.
Do you have a response to
I
that?
have a response. I obviously questioned the teacher right away. I did not sign it.
Yes, I had the same question, obviously. Did not sign off on it right away. I wanted more information. What Mrs. Smoller had told me was that this, for some reason, is an exceptional year with students. She's not had this caliber of students in one lump sum like she's having now. And I told her, I said, independent study is not to work on your DECA project. That's not acceptable. That's not enough. And she assured me that it was way beyond that and that it was an extension of the curriculum based upon that these students have exhausted the curriculum and wanted to do more. And obviously, they're looking to further their education post-secondary wise and pursue the business and marketing field. So I was I did add a lot of pressure to Mrs. Smoller with regard to it has to be legit. And once again, she assured me that it was legit and it was an exception year. She had not had a class like this one.
Yeah, I would think that in the future, we would create a class designation, a title of a class that all these kids could go into.
That's what I was getting.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was asking. Could that be looked at?
Yeah.
But apparently that's going to be a longer process. Thank you.
I would like number 1 held out because I'm going to have to abstain from that. I don't have to abstain from voting on all of them.
Okay, so number 1 and number 3 we'll put on the regular agenda. Number 2, 4, 5, and 6 we'll put on the consent agenda next week.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. McGregor, the same thing for your particular area. Would you like to just ask everybody, what do we want to hold out?
Yes, exactly. We have 11 items there. Would anybody like anything pulled out?
Number
Yes.
1.
We need number 1 held out. Number 4, I believe we need to be held out because there's no name in there right now. Number 6.
Well,
For-
number 4, let me just make a comment on that.
Go ahead.
Now that Doug has been appointed, he will become the board secretary, so we can add his name if the board wishes to see it.
Okay, so-
Consent agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 4 and 6 can go into consent then. All right, number 7, definitely we have to hold out. We haven't even talked about that.
Which number was that?
7. Not hold out, we have to put that on the regular agenda.
Okay.
And probably number 10? We should.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
number 10?
You want that held
Okay.
out, correct?
So, from my perspective, 1, 7, and 10 should be on the regular agenda, and the rest of it should be on the consent agenda, unless there's any other ones that people want held out.
I still do have questions about number 6, approval of school safety and security coordinator. I know Dr. DePerrier said Mr. Goslin would be the board secretary. Is the business manager the best person to be the school safety and security coordinator also?
It's Dr. Jansandi's going to be the school safety and security coordinator.
I'm sorry, I saw it on DVD. I apologize.
You up to the task, sir? Okay, so then 1, 7, and 10. Okay. Mr. Spacuzza, I don't know, I don't remember anything about these 2 items. So would you like to talk about them, Mr. Karazi?
Sure. The concrete covering the gasoline and diesel tanks, that's what the drivers drive on top of to fill their tanks up. It's falling apart, basically. This is going to be replacing a little bit more than half of it. And we can only get, they have to be DEP certified. We only have 1 bid because that's who's DEP certified, and we can't find anybody else.
Just a question on that. Why wouldn't both, there's 2 different bidders on these jobs.
This job,
Well, I mean, the bollards and then
there's 2 different jobs.
I know, but I mean, they're both DEP certified. I mean, you understand my point?
I understand.
But they won't bid on,
They do not. We couldn't get other quotes on it. The second job, we don't have to have 3 quotes because it's underneath the amount. The second job, if you've ever been over there, there's pretty big bollards on the ends to protect the tanks, protect the pumps. They are also having problems. So we're going to line them with. I feel like I have to swallow this thing. We're going to line them with stainless steel and fill them up with concrete, and that's why that one's about $7,000.
Okay, does anyone want either one of these items held out, or can they go on the consent agenda? Okay,
Just where are they? What budget are they coming out of?
That will come out of the maintenance budget.
Okay, so both items will go on the consent agenda. All right. Mr. Christensen, maybe we should take a couple minutes to really look through these. Or is there
it's a long list. I mean, I think that 7, 8, and 9 should come out as
Yes.
separate. The other ones, there's the EduSeer line item, and then I think Precision Services. Could we add what's the dollar value of those, like EduSeer? There's not a cost.
It depends on how many students we have.
Oh, okay.
So these are for online students that go to the BP cyber school.
Okay.
Correct, Lori?
Okay.
I'll just tell you about number 9 real quick. Number 9 is just a resolution that we have to do. It takes the gambling money that we get and divides it up among the number of households that we have. We really have no leeway with that. This just basically informational things that we have to add to the bill.
Okay.
So it's not a big deal.
We don't really need to hold that one out.
We don't, no, because
Okay.
we don't have a choice in that. It's just,
Okay.
it is what it is.
We're not voting on a rate, a tax rate, or
No, that's
how to
number-
distribute it.
That's
we're
number
just-
7.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the homestead resolution, we just have to approve it.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have a number for number 14 for the Ford Consulting Services?
I don't believe we do have a number.
Okay,
I
well, then
think
we
they
should
were-
hold that out
they were
until we
working
get a
on that.
number.
Yeah.
Mr. Villani is working on it.
Okay. So 7, 8, and 14. Go ahead.
So I have several questions on 14 that I've already forwarded to the board and the superintendent. First of all, the implementation, what grade levels does it cover? First of all, can we discuss a little bit about what Ford Consulting is? Then I want to ask about the implementation grade levels, requirements of students to participate in the consulting, and inclusiveness of participation, but demographically, the outcomes, what goals and effectiveness are funded, and any areas of improvement we can see. Again, younger grades, seek to look for scope of inclusiveness, create avenues for participants to be heard by a broader audience and create change from the ground up. And are we providing adequate resources to allow this group to, or this consulting group to succeed and flourish in our business?
It sounds to me as if we should ask Ms. Ford to come in and make a presentation before our next meeting, and have any other administrator who is on board with that to answer your questions. We can forward those questions on to administrators and to Ms. Ford, and we will ask her to come and make a presentation at the next meeting and answer your questions, if that's satisfactory, Mr. Nagel. Okay, so you can handle, you can,
I will help communicate. She also had expressed that she wanted to come and talk as well, so.
okay.
Yeah, she would.
So 7 o'clock next Tuesday. And she can do it remotely, or she can do it, well, we're going to be, no, she can't do it remotely. We're going to be in the auditorium at the high school. Okay, so that's number 14. Looks to me like we got an agreement with AHN.
Correct.
And it looks better than the previous numbers that
It
we
does.
had?
Mhm.
Okay, so does anyone want that held out, or are we good to go?
No, the reason why we had to postpone it last time was just because the numbers weren't up to date, right? On the, yeah.
That's correct, yes.
Now,
And-
did we postpone this or table it, or is there any way, do we have to hold it out just because of how we handled it last time?
I would recommend that it be held out. I believe we postponed it,
I believe we postponed it, yes.
but we could pull up the board minutes to verify.
Okay, so
And
we'll,
you want the agreement needs to be attached, so we have it pulled out and then have the agreement
okay, so
attached.
15
Yeah.
will be held out, and we'll also have to make a motion at the beginning of the meeting next week to add, to bring it back from postponement or something, right? Well-
No, if we'll have to check the minutes to specifically see, and I can look at my notes as well. If it was postponed, you don't have to move to late to bring it from the table.
Okay,
If it was tabled, you'll have to do a motion to take the
Okay.
item from the table and act on it. But
okay.
I can.
Because
talk
we
to-
have 2 items then that we postponed, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
The other item that was postponed will just it will just be added to the personnel agenda, the resignation.
Okay. Does anyone want Mr. Ryer to talk about 19? I do. Well,
Yes,
you've got a whole treatise here for us to read, so.
So I did put an extensive description in there as to what the objectives are, but there's a few parts to this. So for the last few years, I've been coming to you and telling you that
Come closer to the microphone.
the last few years, I've been coming to you and telling you that we want to eventually get rid of the SAN and quit supporting it that we used when we put in the new high school. And it's hard to believe it, but the new high school was opened in January of 2012, and that equipment was installed in the summer of 2011. And the original phone equipment server was installed over at Neil Armstrong in 2010, because we brought up the entire district first on the new phone system, and then we brought up the high school on the new phone system a year later. And so those servers are 9 and 10 years old. And the SAN we refreshed 4 years ago. So we have 1 more year of support on the SAN, and we're looking to continue using the production SAN for another year, but to quit using the backup SAN and replace the backup SAN and the server stack that the phone system is running on, as well as 36 or 37 other servers are running on with a new a Cisco UCS chassis, which is compatible with what we're already doing. And then 2 Cohesity backup boxes, which would replace the backup SAN. So, and the Cohesity backup boxes have the backup software already built into them as part of those boxes. So it's updating this. It's moving away from SAN methodology to a HyperFlex methodology, which basically, instead of having 2 separate devices working together, you have 3 units that contain both storage and compute, and they link together to create a redundant mini server farm. And so it gets us up to date from where we were 10 years ago, and puts us into the future for at least another, I would say 6 or 7 years, but hopefully beyond that. So, and then
And we have this money in your current budget for this year?
Yes.
We can use that? Okay.
Originally, we were going to replace Chromebooks, but the folks at Google extended the life of the current 8th through 12th grade Chromebooks by 1 year. So we don't have to replace them until next year. So, which
Can we make it 2 years?
well, yeah, I can't have to talk to Google about that. So, and with COVID, we've had some challenges with the telephone system because it doesn't really support people working remotely. And so the last part of this, which is not quite set yet, and I have estimates there on the numbers. I got some preliminaries in even during the meeting, but I'll have it updated by next week. But the WebEx piece of it is licensing and that box up there. But the licensing does more than just run that box. It also allows us to turn our phone system inside out and then take our phone numbers out of the district and use them on any internet-connected device and look like we're in district. And so that's the goal of the WebEx piece of this, is to install Jabber and instant messaging on, even smartphones, which you could then put your district phone number on. So there's a few pieces here. So.
Okay. And the one for next year, that's Lego Steam?
That's Lego Steam. That is part 2 of the Lego Steam that was purchased for Neil Armstrong 5th grade last year. And so this year it'll be for the 6th grade. And so that updates the Lego equipment that had been used in tech ed at Neil for, I don't know, it's pretty close to 10 years.
Okay. Does anyone want 19 or 20 held out, or can that go on consent?
I'm fine with it on consent.
Okay. So then, the only ones for this area that will be, so 7, 8,
7, 8, and
14,
14,
and 15
and
are
15, yes.
going to be on the regular agenda. The rest will be on the consent agenda.
Right.
Okay. All right. I didn't see any more public comments. Did anybody else update and see any more? Okay. Any board comments? Any board comments? Okay, I'd like the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Modrak and seconded by Mr. Spacuzza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.